at probably any event. And we're doing this over 3 days. We promised that we're going to have this. This is awesome, y'all. And I want to thank you. Y'all are the first people I want to thank for coming to this very special week, Banned Books Week, which the American Library Association has set aside to celebrate works of literature, but it's not just about literature. It's about all the arts and all speech and all thought. And over the next 3 days, today starting with art, with instructor Steven Hadley, and tomorrow with Bob's associate professor. Are you associate already?
That's after instructor.
That is assistant.
Then I'll be that too.
I'm sorry. Assistant Professor Hadley. He is going to start with art. Tomorrow we're having Mr. Bob Sexton to talk about Socrates' legacy. He was executed for basically asking people to ask questions. And we're also having Dr. Byers, Terry Byers, will be talking about theater and censorship over history. And then on Thursday, Mr. Jim Rolfus will be talking about law, politics, and censorship. And so we're getting the full spectrum. And you're going to see it's not, I didn't mention literature once. Literature is one of the main things. But all these other expressions of the self and of ideas and so forth are what we're really trying to celebrate. Which you'll be surprised at how many books, how many pieces of art, how many people have been executed just for asking questions, right? And so this is important for us. It's often forgotten that this kind of thing happens, and that what we take for granted, lots of people went through a lot to get it to us. And some people didn't make it trying to get us the ability to speak and to read and to see and to think. So today I really am so happy to have Mr. Hadley here. I'm also very thankful for the library for helping us sponsor this, and for the Writing Center and the Writing Center staff. But from here on out, I want to do Steven. After Steven, we'll have question and answer to Mr. Hadley. And then we'll talk about some other things related to censorship and freedom of speech and thought. All right, Mr. Hadley.
Okay.
Assistant Professor.
Thanks.
Okay, again, thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate the turnout as much as Dr. Neighbors and everybody else who has been a part of putting this together. What I put together for you is a selection of controversial and censored works of art in contemporary art, contemporary society, touching on a few of the 3 major contentious issues that we've been dealing with over the last 20-30 years. I'm going to go ahead and go to the first one. The most contentious in almost any society is, of course, going to be religion. Don't mind if I hit the lights? See the images a little bit better, maybe? If that interferes with your filming, we can turn them back on. My apologies. But my question first to you would be, what do you see? For those of you who have taken my class, be quiet. Don't ruin it. But what do you see? Crucifix. How do you think it's portrayed? Is it portrayed in a good light, in a bad light? Is it in any way controversial to you at this moment?
In a good way.
The red is kind of like blood.
Bad. Someone thinks in hell, you say in red, and what?
Blood.
Blood.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's in a bad way.
How so?
It just looks horrible. Yeah. Crucifixion.
So the crucifixion in general could be seen as an icon of something in a negative light. In some way, I mean, the horrific trials that Jesus had to go through, of course. If you hit the next one for me, we'll get a little bit more information. It's called Piss Christ. For those of you who couldn't tell, this is a photograph of a crucifix that was submerged into a container of the artist's own urine, and then photographed, and that's where you get the warm yellow glow going on, as well as the bubbles that had formed on the exterior of the container as he had submerged this image in there. This image was met with a lot of controversy, specifically by, or more specifically by those on the hard religious right. It has since been vandalized. If you go to the next one for me. There were 2 individuals who went in and with a hammer, ice pick, or chisel, nobody has been able to necessarily say specifically which one it was, but went up and smashed the glass. You can see there somebody cleaning up the glass. But the artist himself, in response to this act of vandalism, has decided that this image will remain this way for the rest of its life. that he thinks the statement made by the vandalism of that object is just as powerful as the statement that he was trying to make in its creation. Now, he was not setting out to offend people. A lot of his work, Andres Serrano, deals with particularly important icons across various cultures, but also includes various bodily materials: urine, semen, blood, breast milk, so forth and so on. And so a lot of the contention and anger comes from the juxtaposition of materials that we don't, or substances that we generally don't think of as positive or good, i.e. he has also worked with human excrement and photographed that in various ways. And these are substances that are, of course, thought of as gross, disgusting, disposable, so forth and so on. But other interesting facts about this piece: when it was up for auction, it was expected to raise about $20,000 or $30,000. Anybody want to take a guess at how much it actually sold for?
200,000.
A little overboard, but $160,000+ is what somebody actually paid for this image of Christ submerged in a vat of urine.
The vandalized version?
No, the unvandalized version. It was made in 1998, I believe, or 87. Could you go back one for me?
1987.
1987, yes. The vandalism took place this year in April. April 17th is when one version was vandalized. So despite the longevity of this piece, or the 20+ years that it's been in existence, it continues to be a point of contention. One of the other things that was raised by this was the fact that he received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. He received $5,000 to $15,000 to create pieces like this. He had submerged other religious icons, the Virgin Mary and Jesus, baby Jesus, in a vat of urine as well. And those pieces have not been met with quite the same contention. But there have been protests. There have been, as you can see, physical vandalizement of these things. But religion is one of the major points of contention, despite the open-mindedness that we put forth as an idea of an advanced society, the acceptance of various religions. So if you go to the next one for me, we have this image, the Holy Virgin Mary. Is this particularly offensive to anybody at the moment?
No, but I don't. It doesn't look like Mary.
Bad.
Just bad? Why bad?
Doesn't like her.
Why not? What about her? Who does Mary belong to, I guess, would be the bigger question. Does she necessarily belong to the Catholic or the Christian Church?
She belongs to God.
Belongs to God, but also belongs to everybody in some sense, in terms of their interpretation, their relationship with this particular icon. What most people, or what tends to infuriate many people, are the materials in which this image is actually made of. For one, it incorporates acrylic paints. There are some pins which are not visible on here, and on the left it is supposed to spell out Virgin, and on the right, Mary. But for some people, very few, surprisingly, you of all people, you are marked absent for the day. But the fact that it is a portrayal of a black Mary is not a point of contention for many people. The point of contention is the materials. One, it incorporates elephant dung into this image. Her right breast is, wait, right or left? I'm left-right dyslexic. I'm going to go with
Her right.
Right, there we go. Is a ball of lacquered elephant dung. So she's exposing one breast, which is not uncommon in terms of the nursing of baby Jesus, so not necessarily something there. But what do you see in all of the surrounding imagery, the little collage elements on there?
I'm taking your class.
Yeah, you're taking my class, so you know.
I'm in the midst of it.
Anybody want to take a guess at what those are? Women's asses out of porno magazines. Yes. Do we generally associate the Virgin Mary with porn? No. She's an icon of chastity and virginity, of course, and so forth and so on. Sorry, someone's paging me.
Yes, that was gone already.
Censorship, somebody heard. But yes, these are specifically the images of black women's asses out of porno magazines. And for the artist there, Chris O'Feely, For one, he was not trying to offend people at all. It was not his intention when it was in a show called Sensation or Sensationalism. He was very against the amount of work that was in there that was controversial. For him, this was a byproduct of his upbringing. He was born in England, raised there, went to a Catholic school, but he is of Nigerian descent. He took a certain trip, I believe a grant-funded trip to Zimbabwe, and while he was there he was influenced by cave paintings, which could also explain sort of the very simplistic interpretation, drawing of the Virgin Mary, as well as the texture used there. When we talk about cave paintings, you can imagine the rocky surface that they had to work with. But in many ways he was trying to reconcile a difference between two cultures that he was a part of. His African heritage, his Nigerian heritage, as well as this Catholic Christian upbringing that he had in England. And so when we talk about the elephant dung has many different purposes and uses in various African cultures. It has a spiritual significance in some. Forgive me, I do not know the exact spiritual reference. But it also has utilitarian functions. It can be mixed with clay in terms of making bricks as a binder for making huts. It's also used as a sort of binder for thatching roofs and leaves together for the top of a hut and so forth and so on. This painting itself, when it's displayed, it is actually on top of two balls of laminated elephant dung and leaned up against the wall. Then you've got the pornographic element there, and that is more of a reference to his English upbringing, the Western upbringing. You cannot deny that whether it's England or America, we live in a sexualized culture. I mean, take the off-ramp right up here, just before you get to RPCC. What is that one for? I know some of you guys know. The strip club that's advertised right there. Crazy Horse. See, I told you guys. But again, this guy was very against the sort of sensationalism that this image caused. Rudy Giuliani, the mayor at the time of New York, this was the only work of art in his entire tenure as mayor that he took issue with a work of art. If you go to the next one for me, please. And over there on the right is what happened to it. A man feigning illness. Because of all of the reports of or threats against the piece and against the proprietors of the museum, the gallery, they ended up putting a protective plexiglass shield in front of it. And this man, Heiner, I believe is his last name, he pretended to be sick, to be ill, so that he could lean up against the wall near the piece. And then when nobody was looking, he took a tube of white paint out of his pocket and got behind the glass and started smearing the white paint all over the image. Says there, Dennis Heiner, cleaning it is what he described it as, because he was veiling and protecting the holy qualities of the Virgin Mary from the defilement that was this artist's personal portrayal. If I remember correctly, they did get to it in time and managed to get a lot of that material off. But he took full responsibility for his actions as well. He did not attempt to run away after doing this. He just calmly stayed there. He allowed himself to be arrested. He went to court for it, and they fined him, I believe, $2,500 for destruction of personal property, vandalism, a few other things were attributed to it. But it was a relatively small fine for a piece that sold for much more than $2,500 later on. But another example of one of the important things that I think in regards to controversial images in art, whether they are religious or any other topic, is understanding the context for which the image was made. In this case, he was, again, not trying to offend any religious sensibility. He was trying to reconcile his own cultural differences in regards to the Virgin Mary and where he grew up and the background and so forth and so on. So perhaps a little background information would have alleviated some of the anger for some people. Not necessarily all, but perhaps some. Because as other art critics have argued, like I said, the Virgin Mary sort of belongs to everyone in terms of their relationship with the Virgin Mary. So if they choose this interpretation as something that is relevant to them in the life that they live, who is anybody else to censor or vandalize or take it upon themselves to change or manipulate that image? How many of you are offended by it now that you know a little bit about it? Anybody want to take credit for being offended? I'm not offended if you are offended by it. I mean, you know, it's again, it's all personal interpretation.